Beneath our feet lies a world most of us never think about, a realm of darkness, silence, and hidden passageways, stretching far beyond what the eye can see. Above ground, life hums with the ordinary rhythms of daylight. Footsteps on pavement, the whisper of wind through leaves, the sound of distant traffic. But below there is stillness. Cool, damp air lingers against stone that has not seen sunlight in centuries, perhaps millennia. Somewhere down there, entire chambers and corridors remain untouched, their stories locked away behind walls of rock and sealed gates. Human history is, in many ways, a story written on the surface of the earth. We build our cities upwards, reaching toward the sky with towers and monuments. Yet, for as long as we have been building upward, we have also been digging downward, beneath ancient temples, under bustling marketplaces, below even the quietest rural hillsides. There are spaces carved by hands long gone. Some were places of safety, others were shrines of devotion, some perhaps were prisons for things best left forgotten. The idea of the underground has fascinated humanity since our earliest myths. The Greeks spoke of Hades, the shadowy underworld where souls lingered after death. In Norse sagas, deep beneath the roots of the world tree Yggdrasil, there were realms of frost, fire, and the unknown. Across the world, in Native American legends, in Buddhist teachings, in stories told by nomads on starlit nights, there is always the idea of the world below, a place set apart from the living, holding secrets the surface cannot bear. But in truth, not all underground realms are myth. Many exist in stone and soil, their walls still solid, their corridors still winding in darkness. Some are known, carefully documented by archaeologists, their histories printed in books. Others are only partially explored, sealed behind locked gates or blocked by rubble, left off maps for reasons not always explained. And then there are the places so forbidden that their very existence is denied by the people who control them. Picture a quiet evening in an old European city. The streets are nearly empty, the lamps glow dimly in the mist. You could walk along cobbled lanes, past shuttered shops and closed cafes, and never suspect that only a few meters below you there is another city entirely. A city with its own streets, its own rooms, its own echoes. Its air is cooler, its walls lined with centuries of history. You might pass over it every day of your life and never know it is there. Some underground cities were born of necessity. In times of war, when enemy armies swept across the land, digging into the earth was a way to survive. Entire populations could vanish from the surface, hiding for weeks or months in a subterranean refuge until danger passed. In other cases, the underground was a sacred domain, meant for rituals that outsiders could never witness. There, initiates passed through torchlit tunnels into chambers where only whispers dared travel. But secrecy has a cost. The more hidden a place is, the more its story begins to fade. Without constant human presence, dust settles, wood rots, air grows stale. In such places, even a single breath can feel loud, as though the darkness is listening. That sensation, the quiet awareness of being somewhere you are not supposed to be, has kept explorers, archaeologists, and the curious both enthralled and unsettled for centuries. Governments, too, have their secrets below ground. In the last 100 years, as wars turned from swords to missiles, underground spaces became strongholds of military power. Hidden command centers, nuclear bunkers, and subterranean transport systems sprang up across the world. Many of these are still operational today, their entrances disguised or entirely invisible to the untrained eye. For the people inside, these underground worlds are as normal as any office or home. For those outside, they are whispers, rumors, and restricted zones marked on no public map. Yet, even in the most modern bunkers, the feeling of the underground is ancient, stone or steel. It makes little difference. To go below is to step into a place apart from the living rhythms of the world above. There is no sunrise here, no breeze through trees, no sky to measure the passing of time. Hours and days blur together, replaced by the steady hum of ventilation, the drip of water, the muffled footsteps of those who belong, and always there is the question, what else is down there? What remains locked away behind the no-entry signs and guarded doors? Sometimes the reason is practical, fragile artifacts, unstable structures, or hazardous conditions. Other times, the reason is far more guarded, information, technology, or histories that are not meant for the public eye. The truth is, not all gates are locked to keep people safe. Some are locked to keep certain truths contained. Whether these truths are dangerous, scandalous, or simply too strange to explain, they remain in darkness, waiting for a key that may never come. As we begin our descent into this hidden world, we will journey across continents and centuries. We will visit ancient cities carved deep into rock where entire communities once lived, worshipped, and worked without sunlight. We will pass through forbidden tunnels where even seasoned explorers dare not linger. We will peer into the guarded vaults of governments and the shadowy halls of secret societies. Each place has its own story, and each story leaves behind a question it cannot fully answer. This is not simply a story of architecture or engineering. It is a story of human nature, the instinct to hide, to protect, to build a world away from the world. It is about the lengths we will go to in order to preserve what matters most, whether that is life itself, sacred knowledge, or power over others. And so we begin here, at the threshold between light and darkness. The ground beneath us is solid, familiar, safe, but a few steps down, the air will change, the light will dim, the familiar will fade, and before long we will find ourselves standing in the quiet heart of the earth, where the walls whisper of things that cannot be spoken above. Our journey starts now, with a city beneath the earth that defies imagination, and yet is very, very real. The land of Cappadocia, in central Turkey, is famous for its strange, otherworldly landscape, soft volcanic rock, eroded into cones, spires, and cliffs that seem almost sculpted by hand. But what lies above is only part of the story. Beneath this rolling terrain, hidden for centuries, is a vast underground city that stretches down through the earth in layer upon layer of stone. Its name is Derinkuyu, meaning deep well, and even today, it remains one of the largest and most astonishing subterranean settlements ever discovered. The story of Derinkuyu's discovery feels almost like the beginning of a legend. In the early 1960s, a man renovating his home broke through a wall in his basement, expecting perhaps another storage space. Instead, he stepped into darkness, a narrow passage that led deeper and deeper into the earth. As the opening was widened and explored, it revealed an entire network of tunnels and rooms stretching far below the surface. What the man had found was not just an extra cellar, it was the entrance to a forgotten city. Derinkuyu plunges to a depth of more than 60 meters, with at least 18 distinct levels, though not all are accessible today. Archaeologists estimate that it could once have sheltered up to 20,000 people, men, women, children, and even their livestock. Imagine the sound of thousands of footsteps in narrow corridors, the murmur of conversations in dimly lit chambers, the bleating of goats echoing off stone walls. It was not just a place to hide, it was a functioning city, complete with living quarters, kitchens, wine cellars, schools, wells, and even chapels. The city's design shows an astonishing understanding of ventilation and water supply. Dozens of vertical shafts allowed fresh air to circulate throughout the levels, ensuring that even the deepest chambers remained breathable. Wells tapped into underground aquifers, providing water to residents without the need to surface. Narrow passageways could be blocked by massive circular stone doors, some weighing up to half a ton, that could be rolled into place to seal off a corridor from invaders. In times of danger, the entire city could be closed off like a fortress. But who built Derinkuyu, and when? The answer remains uncertain. Some scholars believe the first levels may date back as far as the 8th or 7th century BCE, perhaps built by the Phrygians, later expanded by the Byzantines during periods of invasion. Others suggest that the Hittites, an even older Anatolian civilization, may have started the work over 3,000 years ago. Whatever its origin, it is clear that successive generations adapted and expanded the city, responding to the needs of their time. Derinkuyu was, above all, a refuge. Throughout history, central Anatolia was a crossroads of empires and a target for armies, from the Persian invasions to Arab raids, Mongol incursions, and beyond. The region saw wave after wave of conflict. The underground cities of Cappadocia, including Derinkuyu, allowed local populations to vanish from the landscape, leaving no visible target for their enemies. Food, water, and supplies could sustain them for weeks or even months, hidden away while danger passed above. Life underground, however, would have been far from comfortable. The air, while breathable, would have been cool and slightly damp. Light came from oil lamps, casting flickering shadows on rough stone walls. In the deeper levels, the darkness was absolute, pressing against the edges of vision. Sound carried strangely through the tunnels. Whispers could travel far, and footsteps could echo in unexpected directions. It was a place of safety, but also of sensory confinement. And yet, there were signs of community life everywhere. Niches carved into walls for storage, benches in communal areas, altars in small chapels. Archaeologists have found evidence of grain storage rooms, wine-making facilities, and even stables for animals. The presence of a schoolroom, complete with a vaulted ceiling, suggests that even education continued during times underground. Derinkuyu was not simply a shelter, it was a world unto itself. Despite the remarkable preservation of its structures, many parts of Derinkuyu remain unexplored. Some passages have collapsed over the centuries, others are blocked intentionally. Local legends tell of tunnels that connect Derinkuyu to other underground cities in the region, stretching for kilometers beneath the earth. If true, such connections would have created an enormous hidden network capable of moving people and supplies in secrecy across vast distances. There are also stranger tales, stories passed down through generations about what might lie deeper still. Some speak of levels that are no longer accessible, where strange relics were kept, or where things were sealed away. While there is no archaeological evidence for such claims, the darkness of Derinkuyu invites the imagination to wander. When a tunnel ends in rubble, who can say for certain what lies beyond? Modern visitors to Derinkuyu see only a fraction of its full extent. Tourists descend into a few of the restored levels, guided through narrow corridors and steep stairways, their footsteps echoing where once entire families lived. The air is cool, and the stone is smooth in places where countless hands have passed. But beyond the lit areas, shadows stretch into the unknown, guarded by barriers and locked gates. These are the forbidden parts, too unstable, too dangerous, or perhaps too mysterious for public eyes. Standing in such a place, it is easy to feel the weight of history pressing in from all sides. Every chamber and passage is a reminder of the resilience of those who lived here and the fears that drove them underground. Derinkuyu is a monument to human ingenuity, but also to the fragility of life in a world where safety was never guaranteed. And still, questions remain. Who conceived of a city so vast, and how did they carve it from solid rock without modern tools? How many times was it abandoned and reoccupied over the centuries? What secrets remain in the sealed-off passages? Archaeology can answer some questions, but not all. The rest belongs to the silent darkness. In the stillness of Derinkuyu, time feels suspended. The city has no seasons, no day or night. It is a place where the human story is carved into the earth itself, a story that refuses to fade. As we leave its cool corridors behind, we emerge into the light with the knowledge that such places exist not just here, but in many corners of the world, hidden, forbidden, waiting beneath the surface. From the depths of Cappadocia, our journey takes us west to a city famous for its beauty above ground, but whose most haunting secrets lie below, in passages lined with the remains of the dead, where the forbidden is not just a matter of law but of reverence. Paris, the city of light, is known for its grand boulevards, glittering riverbanks, and timeless monuments. But beneath its elegant streets and bustling cafes lies a far older, darker Paris, a city beneath the city. Hidden in these depths are not just the celebrated catacombs that tourists can visit, but a sprawling, largely forbidden labyrinth of tunnels and vaults that most will never see. These places carry a mixture of fascination and dread, a reminder that even the most romantic cities have shadows. The story begins centuries ago, long before Paris became the capital we know today. The ground beneath much of the city is riddled with ancient quarries, vast chambers where limestone was extracted to build the cathedrals, bridges, and palaces of the medieval era. As Paris grew, the empty spaces left behind began to form a hidden landscape of their own, stretching for miles under the streets. Over time, these forgotten voids became both a danger and an opportunity. In the late 18th century, the city faced a crisis above ground. Its cemeteries were overflowing. The largest, Les Innocents, had been in use for nearly 1,000 years, and by the 1780s, the stench and risk of disease had become unbearable. Officials decided on a drastic solution, exhuming millions of skeletal remains and relocating them to the empty quarry tunnels beneath the city. Thus, the Paris catacombs were born, transforming part of the underworld into an immense ossuary. The section of the catacombs open to tourists today is haunting enough. Miles of corridors lined with neatly stacked bones, skulls arranged in solemn patterns, plaques inscribed with the dates and names of long-lost Parisians. But this accessible portion represents only a small fraction of the total network. The rest, dozens of miles of tunnels, remains off-limits to the public, guarded by heavy gates and no-entry signs enforced by the police. Why are these areas forbidden? The official reasons are straightforward: safety and preservation. Many passages are unstable, prone to collapse, and completely unlit. Some are partially flooded, others filled with dangerous air pockets. Yet there is also an unspoken understanding that these tunnels contain more than just empty stone and forgotten bones. Within the forbidden zones, there are chambers never catalogued for the public, hidden vaults whose purpose remains uncertain. Over the years, explorers known as cataphiles have risked arrest to map and document these forbidden spaces. Armed with headlamps, ropes, and a quiet determination, they slip into the underground through hidden entrances in basements, manholes, or disused metro lines. Some of their discoveries have become legendary: a fully equipped underground cinema, complete with seats, a bar, and a projection room; intricately decorated chambers used for clandestine gatherings; rooms filled with sculptures carved from the stone itself. These creations blur the line between trespass and art, rebellion and devotion. Yet even the most daring cataphiles speak of areas they avoid: corridors that seem to stretch endlessly into darkness, chambers that feel oppressively silent, and sudden drops into flooded sections. There are whispered rumors of vaults sealed long before the catacombs were officially organized, containing artifacts or records that were never meant to be disturbed. Whether such stories are rooted in fact or flourish in the fertile soil of underground legend, they add an extra layer of mystery to the forbidden Paris below. The tunnels have also been used for purposes less romantic than secret cinemas. During World War II, both the French resistance and occupying German forces took advantage of the labyrinth. The resistance used the catacombs to move people and supplies unseen, while the Germans established a fortified bunker in the underground near the place Denfert-Rochereau. This history has left its mark, not only in the physical remains of wartime construction, but in the sense that the catacombs have always been a contested, dangerous space. Walking through the permitted section today, it is easy to forget just how vast and intricate the network really is. The air is cool and carries a faint mineral scent. Your footsteps echo softly against the stone, and the light from your torch, or the dim bulbs overhead, fades quickly into the darkness. In those moments, you realize how easy it would be to take a wrong turn, how quickly the underground can swallow the unprepared. The knowledge that somewhere beyond the walls are entire districts of forbidden vaults gives the experience an almost magnetic pull, curiosity constantly brushing against the boundaries of law and safety. From a certain perspective, the forbidden zones of Paris are a mirror of the city above ground. Paris is a place of open plazas, transparent light, and public life. Below, it is private, secretive, and silent. The contrast is stark but deeply human. Two cities layered atop one another, each reflecting a different part of the human spirit. Authorities have made efforts to keep the underground secure. Entrances are sealed, inspections are carried out, and special police units known as the cataclysms patrol for illegal activity. But despite this, new stories of infiltration appear every year. For some, the forbidden nature of the vaults is the very reason to enter them. The idea that something is hidden, just beyond reach, creates an irresistible pull, yet not all who venture in return unchanged. Hours spent in darkness can alter one's sense of time and space. The endless repetition of stone corridors can unsettle even the most confident explorer. In the underground, the mind begins to play tricks. Footsteps seem to follow you, air currents carry whispers, and the dim glow of your light sometimes reveals shapes that vanish as quickly as they appear. Whether these experiences are tricks of the senses or something else entirely is a question no one can fully answer. The forbidden vaults of Paris stand as a reminder that even in the most documented cities on Earth, there are still places that remain off-limits, unknown, and deeply mysterious. They are part of a global pattern, a network of hidden places beneath our feet that refuse to give up all their secrets. As we leave the cool, bone-lined corridors behind, the Parisian streets above feel strangely light and open, as though we've emerged from another world entirely. But our next destination will prove that forbidden underground spaces are not always places of the dead. Some guard, not bones, but knowledge locked away for centuries beneath one of the most powerful cities on Earth. In the heart of Vatican City, beyond the grandeur of St. Peter's Basilica, and the sunlight that dances across the cobblestones of St. Peter's Square, lies a doorway that leads not upward to towers or domes, but downward into one of the most secretive and guarded collections of knowledge in the world. These are the Vatican Apostolic Archives, a place often mistakenly called the Secret Archives, though the truth is both more ordinary and far more mysterious than the name suggests. At first glance, there is nothing about the entrance that calls attention to itself. It is unassuming, guarded not by spectacle, but by discretion. Yet beyond those doors, down into climate-controlled corridors and vaults carved into the earth, lies a collection so vast and so carefully controlled that it has captured the imagination of historians, conspiracy theorists, and dreamers alike. It is said that the archives contain over 53 miles of shelving, holding millions of documents spanning more than 12 centuries of history. Officially, the purpose of the Vatican Archives is straightforward: to preserve and protect the Church's administrative records, correspondence, and historical documents. The archives hold letters from kings and emperors, scientific manuscripts, theological treatises, and papal decrees. They safeguard records of church councils, diplomatic negotiations, and political alliances that shaped the course of Europe and beyond. In these vaults are the original trial documents of Galileo Galilei, letters written by Michelangelo, and correspondence from world leaders, both revered and reviled. Yet, for all that is known, much remains hidden. The Vatican allows only select scholars to access the archives, and even they may request only specific items, chosen in advance, approved through a process that can take months or even years. Whole sections remain closed to all but a handful of archivists. These restrictions, combined with the sheer scope of what is stored here, fuel endless speculation about what else the archives might contain. There are whispers of documents that could rewrite accepted history, lost gospels that never became part of the Bible, records of secret dealings between the church and political powers, accounts of events that the official narrative prefers to leave in shadow. Some even claim that ancient artifacts, relics from the earliest days of Christianity, or objects far older, may rest within the hidden chambers, sealed away not for preservation alone, but for control. The archives are not merely a static storage space. Beneath the Vatican, the rooms are carefully controlled in temperature and humidity, the air cool and dry, the lighting subdued to protect fragile parchments and inks. The silence here is absolute, broken only by the soft sound of pages being turned, or the faint hum of preservation equipment. The atmosphere is one of reverence, as though each document carries a weight far greater than paper and ink. To enter this space is to walk alongside the entire arc of recorded human history, at least the part the Church has chosen to keep. There are letters written during the Age of Exploration, describing lands and peoples newly encountered by European eyes. There are reports from missionaries detailing customs, languages, and beliefs, sometimes respected, often suppressed. There are records of coronations, treaties, wars, and peace agreements, each a thread in the vast tapestry of the world's unfolding story. Yet even as the known treasures are overwhelming, the true allure lies in the forbidden. For every document scholars can request, there are others that are never shown. Some are restricted for reasons of fragility or ongoing research, others for reasons unstated. This selective openness creates a paradox. The Vatican archives are, in a sense, one of the most transparent institutions in the world, welcoming academic study, while simultaneously being one of the most opaque, with vast stretches of its holdings hidden from all public view. This balance of openness and secrecy has given rise to centuries of rumor. Theories range from the plausible to the fantastical. Some believe the archives contain proof of early church contact with other civilizations, lost empires, perhaps, or even civilizations not of this earth. Others suggest there are records of miracles, prophecies, or catastrophic events known only to a handful of leaders. A few claim the archives hold ancient maps that chart the world before the last ice age, or records of human history stretching back far beyond what is commonly accepted. While such claims are impossible to verify, the physical reality of the archives is awe-inspiring enough. To imagine walking through mile after mile of shelves, each lined with volumes and scrolls that have survived centuries of upheaval, is to imagine holding in your hands the beating heart of recorded history. And somewhere within those endless rows of bindings and boxes, there may indeed be knowledge so potent, or so dangerous, that it must remain hidden. The location of the archives beneath the Vatican serves both practical and symbolic purposes. Practically, the underground environment offers stability, protection from the elements, and security from intrusion. Symbolically, it suggests that what lies below is foundational, literally and figuratively supporting the institution above. It also places the archives in the realm of the unseen, reinforcing the idea that this is knowledge set apart, accessible only to those deemed worthy or safe. The entrance policy reinforces this sense of guarded privilege. To gain access, one must be a qualified researcher, submit a detailed request specifying the materials needed, and await approval. Once inside, visitors are escorted to specific reading rooms, and the documents they requested are brought to them. No wandering the stacks, no casual browsing. Every movement is recorded, every document handled with meticulous care. For many who work within the archives, the focus is not on mystery, but on preservation. Centuries-old parchment is fragile, ink can fade, and paper can crumble. The archivists see themselves as custodians, ensuring that these irreplaceable artifacts survive not just for decades, but for centuries to come. Yet even they are bound by rules about what can and cannot be shared. In this way, the archives are as much a fortress of discretion as they are a library of history. Leaving the archives, whether in reality or in imagination, feels like surfacing from deep underwater. The sunlit courtyards and marble columns of the Vatican are beautiful, but they are part of a world of openness and display. The rooms beneath are different, dim, cool, and heavy with the weight of centuries. They remind us that for all the history we know, there is a parallel history we do not, one stored away in boxes and bindings, out of reach, waiting for a future that may or may not ever come. As we turn away from the hidden vaults of the Vatican, the mind cannot help but linger on the nature of secrecy. Some knowledge is locked away to protect it, some is hidden to protect us from it. Our journey will now leave behind the whispers of parchment and ink and descend into a far different kind of underground, a place built not for the quiet preservation of history, but for the urgent survival of the present. In the heart of a mountain, behind blast doors and layers of rock, lies a fortress of steel, electronics, and human resolve. Deep within the granite heart of Colorado's Rocky Mountains, hidden behind miles of forested slopes and snow-covered ridges, lies a place built for a singular purpose: survival against the unimaginable. This is the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, a structure unlike any other, a fusion of engineering and secrecy, designed to stand unshaken even in the face of global catastrophe. The story of Cheyenne Mountain begins in the tense years of the Cold War, when the fear of nuclear war was not just a distant possibility, but a looming shadow over daily life. In the early 1960s, the United States sought a command center that could endure the shockwaves of a nuclear blast, shield its inhabitants from deadly radiation, and maintain the ability to coordinate defense in the midst of chaos. The result was a fortress carved into the very bones of a mountain, an engineering feat of both ambition and necessity. From the outside, the mountain appears untouched, an expanse of rock and pine, yet concealed within is a vast network of tunnels and chambers, shielded by more than 2,000 feet of solid granite. To enter, one must pass through a series of blast doors, each weighing more than 20 tons, designed to seal the complex in an instant should disaster strike. Beyond these doors lies an underground city, its hallways echoing softly with the hum of ventilation systems and the quiet footfalls of personnel who live and work beneath the stone. Inside, the Cheyenne Mountain Complex contains 15 massive buildings, each mounted on giant springs to absorb shockwaves. These springs, 3 feet tall and weighing 1,000 pounds each, are a silent yet vital defense against earthquakes or the unimaginable pressure waves of a nuclear explosion. The buildings are connected by tunnels wide enough to drive vehicles through, a reminder that this place is as functional as it is secure. Life inside is carefully self-contained. The complex has its own power plant, capable of generating electricity for months without external support. Water is drawn from deep underground springs, pure and cold. Air is filtered through systems designed to remove radioactive particles, chemical agents, and biological contaminants. Food stores can sustain the population for an extended period, and medical facilities are ready to treat injuries or illnesses, even if the outside world becomes inaccessible. In theory, the complex could operate indefinitely if cut off from the surface. During the height of the Cold War, Cheyenne Mountain served as the nerve center of the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD. From here, military personnel monitored radar stations, satellites, and tracking systems across the globe, scanning the skies for any sign of incoming missiles. In a world balanced on the edge of destruction, these halls were the front line of warning and response. If a launch were detected, alarms would sound, and within seconds decisions could be made that might determine the fate of nations. The atmosphere inside is one of constant readiness. Large screens once displayed real-time maps of airspace and missile trajectories, while rows of consoles were manned by trained specialists, their focus absolute. Every second mattered. There was no room for hesitation in a place designed to respond to threats measured in minutes, even seconds. Yet for all its intensity, life here also had to adapt to the rhythms of confinement. Those stationed inside worked in shifts, shared meals in the cafeteria, and found moments of quiet in the recreation rooms. But Cheyenne Mountain's role was never purely military. Over time, it became a central hub for tracking space debris, monitoring potential asteroid impacts, and overseeing other hazards that might threaten Earth from above. Its sensors scanned not only for weapons but for natural phenomena, solar flares, meteor showers, and the movements of satellites. In this way, the mountain's mission evolved, broadening from the narrowly focused tensions of the Cold War to the wider, quieter vigilance of a world still full of danger. Security here is uncompromising. Every visitor is screened, every movement within the complex monitored. Access to sensitive areas is restricted to those with the highest clearance, and the complex itself is protected not only by its granite shell but by the secrecy of its exact operations. Though the general public knows of Cheyenne Mountain's existence, the full extent of its capabilities is not openly discussed. To walk its corridors is to step into a space where time feels both frozen and immediate. The walls are plain, functional, designed for endurance rather than beauty. The constant low vibration of machinery becomes background noise, a reminder that life here is sustained by systems that must never fail. The air is cool and slightly dry, the lighting steady and without shadows. It is a place built for clarity, precision, and resilience. The sheer weight of the mountain above is almost impossible to imagine. More than 1,000 feet of rock pressed down, yet the people inside move with calm efficiency, trusting in the engineering that surrounds them. The knowledge that they are sealed within one of the most secure structures on Earth brings both comfort and a strange awareness of isolation. Outside, the seasons change, the snows melt into rushing streams, the summer sun bakes the granite slopes, but inside the temperature remains constant, the routines unbroken. Over the decades, Cheyenne Mountain has shifted from being a fully active command center to a standby facility maintained in readiness for crises. Its primary operations have been moved to other sites, yet the complex remains staffed and operational. In times of heightened tension or global threat, it can be reactivated as the central hub of defense. It is a silent sentinel, waiting for a moment that everyone hopes will never come. Stories about Cheyenne Mountain often drift into the realm of myth. Some claim there are hidden levels far below the known chambers, containing technologies not publicly acknowledged. Others suggest that tunnels connect the complex to distant locations, creating a secret network of underground facilities. Whether these claims hold any truth is uncertain, but in a place born from secrecy, the possibility is never entirely dismissed. Standing in one of its vast tunnels, the air cool against your skin, you can hear the faint echo of your own footsteps. Every sound seems to carry further here, as though the mountain itself is listening. The steel doors, the concrete walls, the springs beneath your feet, all are part of a design meant to protect not just the people inside, but the continuity of government, the survival of command, and perhaps, in the most dire circumstances, the survival of civilization itself. As we leave Cheyenne Mountain, the image lingers, a hidden fortress, patient and silent, its heart still beating in the dark. It is a reminder that in our modern world, security often lies not in open displays of strength, but in places unseen, waiting, prepared for a day that all hope will never arrive. Our journey will now take us even deeper into the idea of preservation, not of people, but of the very blueprint of life. Far to the north, in a land of ice and endless night, lies another vault, one built not for war but for the safeguarding of seeds, the genetic promise of tomorrow. Far north of the Norwegian mainland, beyond the Arctic Circle, lies the remote archipelago of Svalbard, a realm of snow, ice, and silence. Here, in a place where the sun disappears for months each winter and lingers endlessly in summer, humanity has built a vault unlike any other. It is not a treasure chamber of gold or jewels, but a repository of something infinitely more precious, the genetic blueprint of life itself. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault was conceived as a safeguard against catastrophe. War, disease, climate change, or natural disaster, any event that might threaten global agriculture, could one day make this vault humanity's last hope for rebuilding the crops upon which we depend. It is in essence a modern ark, carrying not animals, but seeds from every corner of the earth. The location was chosen with care. Svalbard is politically stable, geologically secure, and so far north that the permafrost acts as a natural refrigeration system. Even if the power were to fail, the frozen earth would keep the seeds viable for decades, perhaps centuries. The surrounding mountains rise in stark silence, their jagged forms reflected in icy fjords. This is a place both isolated and enduring, a fitting sanctuary for the genetic diversity of the world's food crops. Approaching the vault, one sees first a wedge-shaped structure jutting from the mountainside. Its entrance is marked by a shining art installation that glitters in the Arctic light, a beacon against the stark whiteness. The actual vault lies deep within the mountain, protected by thick layers of rock and ice. It is designed to withstand earthquakes, rising seas, and even nuclear blasts. The journey inside begins with a long tunnel, sloping downward into the cold heart of the mountain. The air here is crisp and dry, kept at a constant temperature of -18 degrees Celsius. At the end of the tunnel lie 3 storage chambers, though only one is currently in use. Each chamber is lined with shelves containing sealed packages, foil bags holding carefully dried seeds, each labeled and catalogued with precision. The vault is a collaboration on a global scale. Countries, research institutions, and seed banks from around the world send duplicates of their crop collections to Svalbard for safekeeping. These are not donations, but deposits. The seeds remain the property of the donors, who can retrieve them if disaster strikes their own reserves. In this way, the vault acts as a backup system for the planet's agricultural memory. Inside these packages lie the potential for countless harvests: rice from Asia, wheat from the Middle East, maize from the Americas, barley from the Arctic, and thousands of other species and varieties. Each one carries not just genetic information, but the story of the people who cultivated it, the landscapes where it grew, and the centuries of human effort that shaped it. Walking among the shelves is like moving through a condensed version of the world's agricultural history. Here are ancient grains once grown by early farmers, preserved alongside modern hybrids designed for high yields. Some seeds represent crops adapted to drought, others to flooding, still others to the thin, rocky soils of mountain slopes. Together they form a vast and varied library of life, a record of solutions to challenges past, and a resource for challenges yet to come. The importance of such a repository became clear in 2015, when the International Center for Agricultural Research in the Dry Areas, ICARDA, withdrew seeds from the vault. Based in Syria, ICARDA's own collection had been threatened by the civil war, and the organization needed to replace what had been lost. The retrieval worked exactly as intended. Seeds were shipped back from Svalbard, grown to produce fresh stock, and then returned to the vault. It was a quiet, almost invisible act, yet it demonstrated the vault's true purpose, not as a monument, but as a living tool of resilience. Despite its security, the vault has faced its own challenges. In 2017, unusually warm temperatures caused melting in the permafrost, sending water into the entrance tunnel. Fortunately, the water froze before reaching the storage chambers, and the seeds remained untouched. Still, the incident was a reminder that even here, in the frozen far north, climate change is an inescapable force. Improvements were made to ensure the vault's long-term stability, reinforcing its role as a last line of defense. Standing within the vault, surrounded by the hum of refrigeration units and the quiet stillness of the mountain, it is easy to feel the weight of its mission. These seeds represent not just food, but the possibility of survival. In times of abundance, their value might seem abstract. In times of scarcity, they could mean the difference between recovery and collapse. The symbolism of the vault extends beyond agriculture. It speaks to a rare form of global cooperation, where nations set aside differences to safeguard something shared and essential. In a world often divided, the seed vault is a testament to the understanding that some responsibilities transcend politics, borders, and ideology. Outside, the Arctic landscape stretches in every direction, vast, empty, and timeless. In winter, the polar night shrouds the vault in darkness, the stars bright above the frozen ground. In summer, the midnight sun bathes it in an unending glow, the light catching on the reflective panels above the entrance. Through all seasons, the seeds sleep, waiting. If ever the world faces a disaster that wipes out crops on a massive scale, the Svalbard Global Seed Vault will stand ready. Scientists could retrieve its stored varieties, replant fields, and begin again. It is a quiet safeguard, a bridge between the fragile present and an uncertain future. The thought is humbling. Within these frozen walls rests a microcosm of the world's agricultural heritage, a fragile, irreplaceable treasure. Without it, the collapse of one generation's harvest might mean the loss of genetic diversity forever. With it, there is hope that even in the aftermath of disaster, life can be renewed. As we step back into the Arctic air, leaving the seeds in their deep frozen sleep, the vault becomes more than a structure, it is a promise. A promise that we will not allow the knowledge of countless generations to vanish. A promise that in the coldest, most desolate corners of the earth, humanity's care for its own survival endures. Our journey now turns from the cold stillness of preservation to the fiery vigilance of defense. We will descend into another hidden fortress, this time beneath the ocean itself, where steel and stealth guard against threats that move in the shadows. The world's most advanced submarine bases await, and with them another chapter in the story of how we seek to endure. The ocean has always been a place of mystery, but beneath its surface lies a world even fewer have seen, hidden within rocky coastlines, carved deep into mountains, and sometimes entirely submerged beneath the waves, are some of the most secretive military installations ever built, submarine bases. These are fortresses designed not to repel invaders at their gates, but to conceal fleets that can strike anywhere on Earth without warning. During the tense decades of the Cold War, these bases became both symbols of national strength and tools of strategic survival. The nuclear-armed submarines they housed were capable of launching devastating strikes while remaining virtually undetectable. Their very existence reshaped military planning, forcing superpowers into an endless game of cat and mouse beneath the seas. Unlike traditional naval harbors, these hidden facilities were designed with one priority above all: invisibility. Many are carved directly into cliffs, where the narrow entrance can be closed with massive camouflaged doors. Once inside, the tunnels open into vast caverns large enough to accommodate entire submarines. These spaces are not mere docks, they are complete ecosystems containing repair facilities, living quarters, weapons storage, and command centers, all shielded from prying satellites and aerial reconnaissance. One of the most famous examples is the Soviet base at Balaklava, hidden within the mountains of Crimea. From the outside, it appeared to be little more than an ordinary hillside by the water. In reality, a concealed entrance led to an enormous underground complex dug directly into the solid rock. Balaklava was designed to withstand a direct nuclear strike, ensuring that its fleet could survive even the opening moments of a global conflict. Inside its tunnels, submarines could be refueled, repaired, and rearmed, ready to slip back into the Black Sea unnoticed. The secrecy surrounding such bases extended to the people who worked there. Naval crews, engineers, and support staff often lived in isolated towns with limited contact to the outside world. Entry was strictly controlled, and even the families of those stationed inside rarely knew the full scope of the base's operations. Silence was as much a weapon as steel or torpedoes, but it was not only the Soviet Union that built these underwater fortresses. The United States, the United Kingdom, China, and other powers each developed their own versions, often hidden in remote and inhospitable locations. Norway's Olavsvern base, for example, was built into the side of a fjord north of the Arctic Circle. Here submarines could vanish into a network of tunnels far beneath the surface, shielded by the surrounding mountains and icy waters. Some bases are fully submerged, with entrances located beneath the waterline. These can only be accessed by submarines themselves, ensuring that no surface ship or unwanted observer could ever approach. Such designs made detection almost impossible, even with advanced sonar, and gave fleets the ability to operate with near-total stealth. Inside these bases, life for the crews was a blend of discipline and claustrophobia. The air was filtered constantly, the lighting dim and artificial, Steel walkways echoed with the sound of footsteps, and the constant hum of machinery filled every chamber. Outside, the ocean pressed in on all sides, a reminder that here, safety was found not by distance from danger, but by complete concealment within it. The strategic value of submarine bases lay in the nature of the vessels they protected. A ballistic missile submarine could remain hidden for months, carrying enough firepower to deter any potential attack. These boats were the embodiment of the doctrine of mutually assured destruction. Even if an enemy struck first, the submarines would survive to deliver a retaliatory blow. Protecting them, therefore, was a matter of national survival. During moments of heightened tension, the movements of submarines became state secrets of the highest order. Intelligence agencies devoted immense resources to tracking enemy fleets, while military planners worked to ensure their own vessels remained invisible. The cat-and-mouse game played out not only across the world's oceans but also within these hidden bases, where every entrance, tunnel, and exit was designed to mask the coming and going of the fleet. In some places, the scale of the construction was staggering. Entire mountains were hollowed out, with massive dry docks capable of draining and refilling to allow repairs on vessels the length of a football field. Ventilation shafts were disguised as natural rock formations, and escape routes were hidden beneath false floors or behind reinforced bulkheads. The complexity rivaled that of underground cities, except these cities existed for a single, unwavering purpose: to keep the fleet ready for war. Even after the Cold War ended, many of these bases remained operational, their importance undiminished. In a world where stealth and surprise still matter, submarines continue to be among the most dangerous and unpredictable weapons in any navy's arsenal. As a result, the secrecy around their shelters persists. Some former bases, like Balaclava, have been decommissioned and opened to the public as museums. Visitors can now walk the same tunnels that once hid nuclear warheads, seeing firsthand the engineering feats that made them possible. Yet even here, much remains undisclosed. Certain blueprints are still classified, and parts of the complex remain sealed. Other bases are still active, and their locations remain closely guarded secrets. Advances in satellite imaging, sonar technology, and unmanned underwater vehicles have made hiding such facilities more challenging, but not impossible. The ocean, vast and unyielding, still offers places where a fleet can disappear without a trace. The future of submarine bases may look different from their Cold War predecessors. Some nations are exploring mobile floating bases that can be relocated as needed, while others are investing in even deeper and more remote facilities. The logic remains unchanged: as long as submarines are a core element of naval power, there will be places built to hide and protect them. To understand their enduring relevance, one must remember that the true weapon is not the submarine itself, but its invisibility. A fleet hidden is a fleet that can strike at any time, from any direction, without warning. The base is the heart of that invisibility, the place where vessels can vanish into shadow before re-emerging into the vastness of the sea. In the dim corridors of these secret fortresses, history has often waited in silence. Wars have been deterred not by the firing of weapons, but by the knowledge of what lay hidden beneath the waves. And so these places remain unseen, uncelebrated, yet vital to the fragile balance between conflict and peace. From the mountains of Crimea to the fjords of Norway, from the frozen Arctic to the warm waters of the Pacific, secret submarine bases form a network of invisible strongholds across the globe. They are monuments not to victory, but to readiness, built in the hope that their ultimate purpose will never be fulfilled. As we leave the shadowed world of steel corridors and hidden docks, our journey moves from military secrecy to natural mystery. We will now ascend from the deep, cold silence of these undersea fortresses to the remote highlands of South America, where ancient stone walls and forgotten cities whisper of civilizations lost to time. There the secrets are older still, and the questions have no easy answers. High in the rugged backbone of South America, where clouds cling to jagged peaks, and the air thins with every step upward, lie the remnants of cities abandoned centuries ago. These are the lost cities of the Andes, stone kingdoms perched among the clouds, where entire civilizations once thrived and then mysteriously vanished, leaving behind only weathered walls and unanswered questions. The Andes are more than a mountain range. They are a world unto themselves. Stretching nearly the entire length of the continent, they rise like a colossal wall, their slopes cut by deep valleys and shadowed gorges. In this unforgiving environment, ancient peoples built wonders of engineering that seem almost impossible, given the tools and technology they possessed. The most famous of these, Machu Picchu, stands as the crown jewel, yet it is only one of many forgotten strongholds scattered across these highlands. Long before the Spanish arrived in the 16th century, the Andes were home to a tapestry of cultures, each adapting to the thin air and steep terrain in their own way. The Inca, of course, stand at the forefront of this history, having forged an empire that stretched thousands of kilometers along the spine of the mountains. Their roads, terraces, and stone cities were masterworks of planning and precision. But they were not the first. Beneath the Incas' achievements lie the legacies of the Wari, the Tiwanaku, the Chachapoya, and countless others, whose names and stories are now shadows in the mists. The lost cities of the Andes share certain traits that fuel speculation about their origins and purposes. They are often located in places of extraordinary inaccessibility, perched on narrow ridges, hidden in dense cloud forests, or tucked within valleys so remote that even modern explorers must fight for days to reach them. The stonework is typically of astonishing quality, with blocks cut so precisely that no mortar was needed to hold them together. These walls have endured earthquakes, storms, and centuries of neglect, standing almost as firmly today as they did when they were first laid. One of the great mysteries lies in the purpose of these sites. Some, like Choqquequirao, often called the sister city of Machu Picchu, appear to have been ceremonial centers, perhaps serving as sacred retreats for priests and nobility. Others, such as the fortress of Cuelap in northern Peru, seem more defensive, their towering walls suggesting a need to guard against hostile neighbors. Still others defy easy categorization, with layouts and structures that hint at purposes now lost to time. Cuelap, for instance, was built by the Chachapoya, known as the Warriors of the Clouds. This massive complex sits atop a limestone ridge, its walls rising up to 20 meters high. Within are hundreds of circular stone dwellings, many adorned with intricate geometric friezes. Archaeologists believe it could house thousands of people, yet it was eventually abandoned, left to be swallowed by moss and mist. Why the Chachapoya left such a formidable fortress is unknown. Perhaps war, perhaps disease, perhaps the inexorable pull of larger empires like the Inca. Even Machu Picchu itself raises more questions than it answers. Rediscovered by American explorer Hiram Bingham in 1911, it has since become one of the most recognizable archaeological sites in the world, but scholars still debate its true purpose. Was it a royal estate for the Inca Emperor Pachacuti, a sacred astronomical observatory, or perhaps a spiritual sanctuary, removed from the turmoil of the empire below? Its location, nestled between two mountain peaks and accessible only by a narrow ridge, suggests a deliberate choice, one that fused natural beauty with political or religious significance. What unites these lost cities is the interplay between human ambition and natural isolation. Building at such heights required extraordinary ingenuity. Terraced fields clung to mountain slopes, turning thin soil into productive farmland. Aqueducts carried water from distant springs, and roads, sometimes little more than narrow stone paths, snaked across impossible landscapes. The Andean peoples mastered the art of survival in a place where frost could strike in midsummer and rain could wash away entire hillsides in a single night. Yet for all their brilliance, these cities eventually fell silent. In some cases, the coming of the Spanish was the final blow. Disease, conquest, and forced resettlement, tearing apart the social fabric. In others, the decline seems to have begun earlier, perhaps driven by environmental changes. A shift in climate could have disrupted the delicate balance of agriculture, making it impossible to feed large populations. Earthquakes too were a constant threat in this tectonically active region, capable of toppling even the most skillfully built walls. There are also whispers of more enigmatic explanations. Local legends sometimes speak of cursed places where the gods withdrew their favor, forcing inhabitants to leave. In the Quechua oral tradition, mountains themselves are living beings, a pus that watch over the land. If angered, these spirits might send storms, landslides, or disease as punishment, prompting entire communities to abandon their homes. Such beliefs, woven into the fabric of Andean life, may have been as influential as any physical hardship. Modern exploration of these sites is a challenge in itself. Dense vegetation hides structures from view, and shifting weather can turn a climb into a deadly ordeal. In some regions, political instability and land disputes make archaeological work dangerous. Yet every year new discoveries emerge, satellite imaging, revealing patterns in the landscape, LiDAR scans, cutting through jungle cover to expose forgotten walls and terraces. Each find adds to the puzzle. In the Vilcabamba region, once the final refuge of the Inca resistance against Spanish rule, explorers have located several sites that may have served as hidden capitals. These were places where the last Inca rulers sought to regroup and fight on, only to fade into history. Similarly, in the cloud forests of northern Peru, archaeologists have uncovered entire complexes overgrown with orchids and ferns, untouched for centuries. What is perhaps most striking about the lost cities of the Andes is how they blur the line between human creation and natural wonder. The builders worked with the mountains, not against them, integrating terraces into slopes, aligning temples with the path of the sun, and using local stone that seemed to grow out of the very peaks themselves. Even in ruin, these places feel alive, as if the land remembers the hands that shaped it. Tourism has brought some of these sites back into the global spotlight, but it is a double-edged sword. While visitors bring attention and resources, they also risk damaging the fragile remains. Machu Picchu, for example, faces constant pressure from foot traffic, prompting authorities to limit daily visitors. Lesser-known sites remain vulnerable to looting, their artifacts disappearing into the black market before scholars can study them. Preservation efforts are a race against time. Climate change threatens to alter rainfall patterns, increasing the risk of landslides and erosion. Plants push their roots deep into ancient walls, slowly prying apart stones that have held together for centuries. Without intervention, some cities may vanish entirely, lost not to conquest or abandonment, but to the slow reclaiming power of nature. And yet, there is hope. Local communities, archaeologists, and governments are increasingly working together to protect these treasures. Educational programs teach the cultural significance of the sites, while sustainable tourism models aim to balance access with conservation. The Andean peoples, whose ancestors built these cities, remain deeply connected to their heritage, seeing in the stones not just history, but identity. The lost cities of the Andes are more than ruins. They are reminders of what human ingenuity can achieve in the face of extreme challenge, and warnings of how fragile even the mightiest creations can be. In their silence, they speak of empires that rose and fell, of mysteries that may never be solved, and of the enduring relationship between people and the land they call home. As the mist drapes itself over ancient terraces and condors wheel high above, the Andes hold their secrets close. And perhaps that is part of their magic. Some places are meant not to be fully understood, but to inspire awe in all who glimpse them. From these stone kingdoms in the clouds, our journey will descend into the world of shadows once more, where hidden laboratories and secret scientific programs shape the course of modern history. There, in the realm of classified research and whispered rumors, the questions will grow darker and the answers even more elusive. In the summer of 1587, a small band of English settlers stepped ashore on Roanoke Island, off the coast of what is now North Carolina. They had crossed the vast Atlantic in the hope of building a new life in the New World, an ambition supported by Sir Walter Raleigh and sanctioned by Queen Elizabeth I herself. Yet, within 3 short years, they would vanish without a trace, leaving behind one of the most enduring enigmas in American history. The Roanoke colony, was not England's first attempt to establish a foothold in the Americas, but it was its most ambitious. The settlers, men, women, and children, intended not just to explore, but to plant roots. They brought tools, seeds, and the determination to survive in a land both rich with promise and fraught with danger. Among them was Governor John White, who had been chosen to lead the colony, and his pregnant daughter, Eleanor Dare, who would soon give birth to Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas. At first, their future seemed uncertain, but possible. The settlers began to build houses and plant crops, relying partly on trade with the local Algonquian-speaking tribes. But tensions with some native groups quickly escalated. Misunderstandings and conflicts, combined with dwindling supplies, made survival a daily challenge. By late 1587, the situation had grown desperate enough that Governor White decided to sail back to England to request reinforcements and provisions. Fate, however, conspired against his swift return. England was on the brink of war with Spain, and the Spanish Armada's threat meant that every available ship was commandeered for national defense. White's repeated attempts to secure passage back to Roanoke were delayed for years. It was not until August 1593, long years after his departure, that he finally returned to the island. What he found was a haunting emptiness. The colony's fort stood deserted. Houses had been dismantled, not destroyed, suggesting a deliberate departure rather than a hasty flight. There were no signs of violence, no human remains, and no clear indication of where the settlers had gone. The only clue was a single word carved into a wooden post, Croatoan. White immediately interpreted this as a possible sign that the settlers had moved to Croatoan Island, home to a friendly tribe, but worsening weather and damaged ships prevented a thorough search, and he was forced to sail back to England without finding them. The trail went cold, and the mystery began. Over the centuries, countless theories have emerged. One suggests that the settlers did indeed relocate to Croatoan Island, intermarrying with the native population and becoming absorbed into their society. Supporters of this idea point to later reports from European settlers who encountered indigenous people with lighter skin, grey eyes, or even English surnames. Another theory proposes a far darker end. Some historians believe the settlers may have attempted to move inland, only to fall victim to starvation, disease, or hostile tribes. Without the infrastructure or alliances needed for survival, they may have perished in the wilderness, their remains lost to time. Others suggest a blending of these scenarios, that some settlers integrated with local tribes, while others met a violent end. Archaeological evidence from sites on Hatteras Island and the mainland shows tantalizing hints, fragments of European pottery, tools, and gun parts that date to the late 16th century, yet none of these finds has been definitive enough to close the case. More speculative theories reach into the realm of the extraordinary. Some have suggested the settlers were taken by the Spanish, whose forces patrolled nearby waters and sought to prevent English colonization. Others spin tales of supernatural forces, curses, hauntings, or even alien abduction, though such ideas remain firmly in the territory of legend rather than evidence. Part of the enduring fascination with Roanoke lies in its timing. It occurred at the dawn of England's colonial ambitions, a moment when the New World was still largely a place of myth and mystery to the European mind. The disappearance, unsolved and unconfirmed, became a cautionary tale and a piece of national folklore. It warned of the dangers of the unknown, but it also stoked the imagination of generations to come. Modern technology has brought new tools to the investigation. Ground-penetrating radar, DNA testing, and satellite imagery have all been employed in recent decades to search for traces of the colony. In 2012, scholars examining a 16th century map of the region discovered a hidden marking beneath a patch on the paper, a symbol that may indicate a possible relocation site inland. Excavations at that location have revealed both indigenous and European artifacts, suggesting some degree of contact. And yet, for all these efforts, no final answer has emerged. The fate of Virginia Dare, her parents, and the rest of the Roanoke settlers remains an open question, one that resists closure. no matter how many new clues appear. Perhaps this is fitting. Some mysteries retain their power precisely because they are never fully resolved. Local legend has imbued the story with a spectral quality. In parts of North Carolina, the White Doe legend tells of Virginia Dare being transformed into a ghostly deer, forever wandering the forests near Roanoke. Others speak of ghost lights seen on Hatteras Island, believed to be the spirits of the lost colonists searching for home. These tales, though unverifiable, have become part of the cultural fabric surrounding the mystery, ensuring that it lives on not just in history books but in folklore. The Roanoke colony's disappearance stands at the crossroads of fact and legend, history and imagination. It is a reminder of how fragile human endeavors can be, especially when they challenge the unknown. It also reveals how a single unanswered question, "What happened to them?" can echo across centuries, shaping national identity and inspiring endless speculation. As the winds still sweep across Roanoke Island, and the Atlantic crashes against its shores, the ghost of the colony remains. Some believe that one day archaeology will yield a definitive answer, closing the chapter at last. Others quietly hope that the mystery will endure, an eternal reminder that not every story in history can, or should, be fully told. From this vanished settlement, we turn to a very different kind of disappearance, one not born of colonial hardship but of modern intrigue. In the next chapter, we will enter the Cold War's labyrinth of espionage, double agents, and vanished operatives, cases where the truth is buried under layers of deception, and where missing persons are not merely victims, but players in a deadly game of shadows. The Cold War was an era defined by shadows, an invisible battlefield, where nations fought, not with armies on open fields, but with secrets, lies and whispers, in dimly lit rooms. It was a war without declarations, fought in the alleys of Berlin, the cafes of Moscow, and the hushed offices of intelligence agencies, scattered across the globe. It was a world where the wrong word could mean death, and where the most valuable currency was information. In such a world, disappearances were not only common, they were expected. Yet some cases stand out, not merely because of their mystery, but because of the way they seem to dissolve the very people involved into thin air. In the late 1940s and early 1950s, as the Soviet Union and the United States settled into their ideological standoff, a dangerous game unfolded between the KGB and the CIA. Agents crossed and recrossed the Iron Curtain, carrying coded messages, microfilm, and sometimes their own lives in their hands. Double agents, those working for both sides, were the most vulnerable. They walked a tightrope of loyalty and deception, knowing that discovery by either side meant certain death. One of the most famous cases was that of Guy Burgess and Donald Maclean, two members of Britain's Cambridge 5 spy ring. In May 1951, under mounting suspicion from MI5, both men vanished from their London lives. Days later, reports emerged that they had been spotted in Moscow, having defected to the Soviet Union. Their sudden flight sent shockwaves through Western intelligence, exposing just how deeply Soviet agents had penetrated Allied networks. Yet even their story is incomplete. The details of their escape, how they slipped surveillance, who helped them, and what exactly they revealed to the Soviets, remain shadowed in ambiguity. Other cases never reached even that level of resolution. Valery Ivanovich Rozanov, a Soviet diplomat stationed in Washington during the 1960s, simply vanished one summer afternoon. American intelligence believed he had defected to the West. The KGB claimed he had been kidnapped. No definitive evidence ever surfaced, and Rozanov became a ghost in the archives, his fate locked away in classified files, his name erased from official histories. Berlin, the divided city at the heart of Cold War tensions, became a stage for some of the most daring and dangerous operations. The Berlin Wall, erected in 1961, didn't just divide East and West Germany, it symbolized the split between two worlds. Beneath its streets, tunnels were dug to smuggle people and secrets across the divide. Operation Gold, a joint CIA, MI6 effort, aimed to tap Soviet communication lines in East Berlin. The operation succeeded for months, until it was betrayed by George Blake, a double agent working for the KGB. Blake's own eventual disappearance from a British prison in 1966, slipping away during a walk, scaling a wall, and vanishing into the night before surfacing in Moscow, remains one of the most audacious escapes in espionage history. For some, disappearance was the ultimate form of punishment. Intelligence services on both sides engaged in what was known as liquidation, the quiet removal of perceived threats. Targets were sometimes assassinated outright, their deaths staged as accidents, but more often they were simply erased. Identities were stripped away, personal histories obliterated, and the individual would cease to exist in any official capacity. In the USSR, such erasures could mean exile to remote labor camps, where prisoners might vanish into Siberia's endless wilderness, their names never spoken again. The United States, too, was not immune to shadowy disappearances. In the 1970s, John Arthur Paisley, a senior CIA officer with alleged ties to the KGB, disappeared from his boat on the Chesapeake Bay. Days later, his body, or what was believed to be his body, was found floating in the water with a gunshot wound to the head. The death was officially ruled a suicide, but inconsistencies in the evidence, coupled with Paisley's deep knowledge of Cold War intelligence, fueled speculation that he had been eliminated by one side or the other, or perhaps had faked his death entirely to escape the dangerous double life he was leading. Disappearance was not always a final act. In rare cases, agents were exfiltrated, smuggled out of hostile territory, and given new identities under witness protection programs. These operations were perilous, requiring forged documents, false trails, and sometimes years of preparation. For those who succeeded, the price was permanent exile from their past lives. They could never return home, never speak their real names again, and often had to watch their own families from afar, powerless to reveal they were still alive. What made these vanishings so unsettling was that they were often invisible to the public at the time. Most disappeared spies were not celebrities or public figures. Their absence was known only to a small circle of operatives and analysts. Files would be marked missing or presumed dead, and then sealed away, inaccessible to journalists or historians for decades. Only when classified documents were released, often in heavily redacted form, did fragments of these stories reach the surface. The Cold War ended officially with the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, but the mysteries of its disappearances remain unsolved. Many of the key witnesses have died, their secrets buried with them. Intelligence agencies on both sides maintain archives that could answer these lingering questions, but those records are among the most closely guarded in the world. Even today, attempts to access them are met with silence, denial, or misleading half-truths. Modern researchers, combing through declassified files, intercepted communications, and personal memoirs, have pieced together partial narratives. They can tell us who might have been involved, when the last known contact occurred, and in some cases why the disappearance happened. But the final moments, the decisions made in a locked room, the last conversation, the final glance before stepping into the unknown, remain hidden just out of reach. Cold War disappearances occupy a peculiar place in history. They are neither fully solved, nor entirely forgotten. They exist in the space between fact and fiction, where plausible reality and imaginative speculation intertwine. For every documented operation, there are rumors of others: a spy who walked into a forest and never returned, a diplomat who boarded a train to Vienna and was never seen again, a scientist who vanished from a conference in Geneva, leaving his hotel room undisturbed, his passport and belongings untouched. These stories remind us that during the Cold War, disappearance was more than an accident of fate. It was a weapon. It could be used to silence dissent, to protect secrets, or to manipulate narratives. And in a conflict, where perception often mattered more than reality, a missing person could be as valuable, or as dangerous, as any living agent. As we leave the shadowed streets of Cold War espionage, we move toward another kind of disappearance, one rooted not in politics or ideology, but in the natural world. Our next chapter takes us deep into the oceans, where ships and their crews have vanished without distress calls, without wreckage, and sometimes without even a ripple to mark their passing. It is a reminder that while human intrigue can erase people from history, nature itself can swallow them whole. The sea has always been both a pathway and a predator, a vast, untamed wilderness where human control is an illusion. From the earliest seafaring vessels to the colossal ships of the modern age, mariners have faced storms, treacherous currents, and the unyielding depths. But in the modern era, when radar, GPS, and radio communications should make navigation almost foolproof, the unexplained vanishing of entire ships becomes something else entirely. It becomes a mystery, a shadow on the horizon that no technology can quite chase away. Some of these disappearances occur in regions already steeped in legend. The Bermuda Triangle, stretching between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, has long been associated with vanishing ships and aircraft. In December 1945, Flight 19 5 U.S. Navy bombers disappeared without a trace during a routine training mission in this area, prompting one of the largest search operations in history. A rescue plane, sent to find them, vanished as well. Although Flight 19 was an aerial incident, the sea beneath them became the graveyard of their fate, swallowing both metal and men, without leaving debris. This was not the first such case, nor the last. Cargo ships, pleasure yachts, and fishing vessels have vanished in the same region, often without sending a single distress signal. Yet the Bermuda Triangle is only one patch of ocean where such mysteries unfold. The Mary Celeste, perhaps the most famous ghost ship in history, was discovered adrift in the Atlantic in 1872, its sails intact, cargo untouched, and dinner still set on the table. Though this occurred in the 19th century, the mystery lingers into modern maritime investigations, as a reminder that ships can become tombs without bodies, their stories written only in the silence of the sea. In the 20th and 21st centuries, similar cases have echoed the Mary Celeste's enigma. In 2007, the Kaz II, a 12-meter catamaran, was found drifting off the coast of Queensland, Australia. The yacht was in perfect working order, engine running, sails neatly set, and personal belongings undisturbed, but the three-man crew was gone. The last entries in their logbook described calm seas and routine activities. No signs of struggle, no evidence of a sudden storm, no clue at all. Maritime authorities were left with only questions, and the ocean, as always, refused to answer. One of the most chilling aspects of modern maritime vanishings is how sudden and complete they can be, even in busy shipping lanes. In 2013, the cargo vessel MV Lyubov Orlova, abandoned and set adrift in the North Atlantic, became a ghost ship in motion. Originally intended for scrapping, the ship broke loose from its tow line and drifted into open waters. For months, satellite trackers picked up intermittent signals, but then nothing. Whether it eventually sank or still roams the oceans as a rusted phantom remains unknown. Sometimes disappearances happen under circumstances that defy both logic and physics. In 2015, the fishing vessel Jian Seng was found adrift in the Gulf of Carpentaria, Australia, without crew, identifying marks, or any record of registration. Its origins remain a complete mystery. Was it abandoned after illegal fishing activities? Was it a vessel in transit between black market operators? No one could say for certain, and without a single human witness, the answers dissolved into speculation. Weather, of course, plays a role in many maritime vanishings. Rogue waves, towering walls of water appearing without warning, have been known to swallow ships whole, leaving no survivors or wreckage. These waves were once considered sailors' tall tales until they were recorded by scientific instruments in the 1990s. Imagine a 30-meter high wall of water rising from an otherwise calm sea and striking a vessel before any distress call can be sent. For the families left behind, such a fate offers a terrible kind of closure, the knowledge that nature itself can erase the largest of human creations in seconds. In some cases, however, the sea may not be the only culprit. Piracy, though often associated with a romanticized past, remains a deadly reality in certain regions. The waters off Somalia, the Strait of Malacca, and parts of West Africa have all seen modern-day pirates board vessels, seize crews, and vanish into the maritime underworld. Sometimes the ships are found later, stripped of cargo and drifting. Other times, both ship and crew disappear entirely, leaving only rumors in their wake. These disappearances blur the line between maritime crime and maritime mystery, for without evidence, the exact fate of the vessel remains uncertain. Modern navigation and communication technology should, in theory, prevent such vanishings. GPS can track a ship's every movement, and satellite phones can transmit distress signals instantly. Yet technology can fail, or be deliberately disabled. There are cases where transponders have been turned off manually, suggesting foul play. In others, ships vanish from radar screens as if swallowed by the sea itself. When investigators board recovered vessels, they sometimes find smashed electronics, damaged lifeboats, or, in rare cases, encrypted log entries that hint at events too dangerous to record openly. The emotional toll of these disappearances is profound. For the families of missing sailors, closure is often impossible. The absence of a body, a wreck, or any definitive proof of death leaves them in a cruel limbo, clinging to hope while fearing the worst. Maritime tradition has long recognized this particular agony. Sailors' memorials in ports around the world bear names of the lost people who left shore one day and never returned. The inscriptions are carved in stone, but the stories remain fluid, shifting with every new rumor or discovery. Even in the age of satellite surveillance, the ocean covers over 70% of the Earth's surface, much of it still unmapped and unmonitored. Vast stretches of the deep remain as unknown to us as outer space. The disappearance of ships in these remote regions serves as a humbling reminder that human mastery over the sea is an illusion. Our vessels may be stronger, and our instruments more advanced, but the ocean remains untamed, and it guards its secrets well. Investigators and maritime historians often return to the same conclusion. Each vanishing at sea is a combination of factors: human error, mechanical failure, weather, and sometimes human malice. But what makes these cases so haunting is that for all our forensic science and technological progress, the ocean still wins. It is the perfect crime scene, washing away evidence, scattering debris, and keeping its witnesses silent beneath the waves. Some believe that many of these mysteries are not mysteries at all, that every disappearance has a rational explanation waiting to be uncovered. Yet the persistence of such cases into the 21st century suggests otherwise. Whether it's a yacht vanishing on a calm day, a cargo vessel disappearing in busy waters, or a ghost ship drifting into view without a soul aboard, these incidents resist simple answers. They endure because they tap into a primal human fear, the fear of being swallowed whole by something vast, unknowable, and indifferent. As our journey through history's vanishings continues, the sea will give way to land once more. In the next chapter, we turn our gaze toward the most isolated and inhospitable place on Earth, the frozen expanse of Antarctica, where explorers, scientists, and entire expeditions have vanished not into the waves, but into ice and time itself. Antarctica is a place where the world's edges dissolve into a frozen infinity, where the horizon is a white void, and the air itself can kill. It is the coldest, driest, and windiest continent on Earth, a place that resists life and punishes the unprepared. For explorers, scientists, and adventurers, Antarctica has always been both a lure and a death sentence. And while the seas and jungles of the world have claimed their share of the missing, the Antarctic has its own catalogue of vanishings, strange, chilling events that unfold in the most unforgiving environment on the planet. The earliest recorded disappearances in this region came during the heroic age of Antarctic exploration in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Expeditions were ill-equipped for the sheer brutality of the climate. Ice could crush a ship as easily as breaking a matchstick, storms could erase landmarks, and the constant blinding snow could disorient even the most seasoned navigator. Men could step only a few meters away from camp and vanish forever, swallowed by blizzards that erased their tracks within seconds. One of the most haunting stories is that of the Southern Cross Expedition 1898-1900, led by Carsten Borchgrevink. While the team successfully overwintered in Antarctica, the first to do so, 2 members mysteriously disappeared during a sledging trip. No bodies were ever recovered, and with the temperatures dropping to lethal levels, the assumption was they perished quickly. Yet questions linger. Why did they venture away from safety without alerting others, and why were no supplies or gear found afterward? But the most famous Antarctic disappearance remains tied to the British Antarctic Expedition of 1910-1913, led by Robert Falcon Scott. Though Scott and his polar party were eventually found frozen to death, other members of the broader expedition team vanished entirely. In 1912, meteorologist George Clark was separated from his team during a survey in worsening weather. Search efforts proved futile. No trace of him was ever found. Clark's fate became a cautionary tale for every expedition that followed in Antarctica. Survival depends not just on preparation, but on the mercy of forces far beyond human control. Even in the modern era, with advanced communications, aerial reconnaissance, and survival gear, Antarctica continues to claim the living without a trace. In 1965, a small team from a Soviet research station went missing during a routine supply run across the ice shelf. Radio contact was lost mid-transmission, and their tracked vehicle was never located. The ice has likely swallowed it, burying it under layers that will not resurface for centuries, if ever. Then there is the 1979 Air New Zealand Flight 901 disaster, when a sightseeing DC-10 crashed into Mount Erebus, killing all 257 aboard. While the wreckage was eventually found, parts of the fuselage and many human remains became permanently entombed in the ice. Decades later, shifting glaciers have still not released all that they claimed that day, meaning portions of that tragedy remain missing in the most literal sense. Some disappearances in Antarctica take on a more bizarre dimension. In 1995, British scientist Rodney Marks, stationed at the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station, fell ill and died under mysterious circumstances. Though not a disappearance in the physical sense, the details surrounding his death vanished into layers of bureaucratic silence. Initial reports attributed it to natural causes, but later investigations revealed a lethal dose of methanol in his system. With Antarctica's jurisdictional complexities and limited investigative capacity, the truth about how or why he ingested the poison has never been resolved. In more recent years, private expeditions and extreme adventurers have added their names to Antarctica's roll call of the missing. In 2007, an American solo skier attempting a cross-continent trek vanished after his GPS tracker stopped transmitting. Search aircraft scanned thousands of square kilometers of ice without success. Experts speculate he may have fallen into a crevasse, hidden cracks in the ice that can be hundreds of meters deep and invisible until it's too late. Once a body disappears into such a fissure, retrieval is nearly impossible. One reason Antarctica swallows its victims so completely is the way the continent itself moves. Glaciers flow slowly toward the sea, carrying with them whatever becomes trapped in their frozen mass. Over decades, centuries or millennia, the ice can bury objects under hundreds of meters, preserving them perfectly but hiding them from all human eyes. Ships trapped in sea ice may be dragged along, their locations shifting far from where they were last seen. The landscape itself erases evidence, remapping the terrain as if to hide the past. Despite the extreme danger, the lure of Antarctica remains strong. Scientific research, tourism, and adventure travel have only increased in recent decades. But with more human presence comes more opportunity for disappearance. In 2013, 2 experienced mountaineers vanished while attempting a new route on Mount Vinson, Antarctica's highest peak. Favorable weather for climbing can turn deadly within minutes, Rescuers believe they were caught in a sudden storm, their bodies now buried under snow and ice. The continent's remoteness compounds every search effort. Unlike the oceans, where ships and planes can be deployed from multiple directions, Antarctica offers only limited access windows dictated by seasonal weather. Search teams must race against time, because once winter descends, darkness and cold make further operations impossible until the following summer, by which point wind and snow have erased all traces of the missing. Technology has improved survival odds, but has not eliminated vanishings. Satellite phones can fail in extreme cold, batteries drain rapidly, and GPS signals can be disrupted by the continent's magnetic anomalies. Even when distress signals are sent, the time it takes to mobilize a rescue often means that by the time help arrives, the trail has already gone cold, literally and figuratively. For the families of the lost, Antarctica offers no comfort. In other parts of the world, even if a body is not recovered, there is at least a plausible narrative of what happened. In Antarctica, however, the narrative often ends with a blank page. There are no eyewitnesses, no conclusive wreckage, and no final resting place. Loved ones are left to imagine endless white horizons swallowing the people they cared for. Antarctica's vanishings are not simply accidents, they are acts of erasure by the planet itself. The ice does not just take, it hides, it preserves, and it moves. In doing so, it turns every disappearance into a cold case in the most literal sense. Historians, explorers, and scientists may debate the causes, but one truth remains unchanged: in the white silence, there are no guarantees. As we leave the frozen continent behind, our investigation moves north once more into deserts, jungles, and mountains, where entire groups of people have disappeared, not into the cold, but into heat, sand, and stone. Yet whether in ice or in fire, the outcome is the same. The world has its places where the missing are never found, and the answers are buried deeper than we can dig. Beneath the surface of our planet lies a realm as alien as any distant world. Vast caverns where darkness is total, where the air grows heavy and damp, and where each step into the unknown can lead to places no human has ever stood. Caves have fascinated and terrified humankind for millennia. They are natural fortresses, tombs, hiding places, and sometimes traps from which no one returns. The deeper we go, the more they become worlds unto themselves, isolated, silent, and indifferent to the fragile life that dares enter them. The world's deepest caves push human endurance to its limits. Temperatures often hover just above freezing, passages can be as narrow as a coffin, and sudden drops can plunge hundreds of meters into black nothingness. Floodwaters can rise without warning, sealing off escape routes, and in this hostile labyrinth, many have ventured in, only to vanish forever. One of the most infamous cases is the disappearance of experienced cave diver Ben McDaniel in Vortex Spring, Florida, in 2010. Though not the deepest cave in the world, the site is notorious for its dangerous underwater tunnels. McDaniel entered the cave system one summer afternoon and never emerged. Search teams, including elite divers, scoured every accessible chamber but found no trace, no equipment, no body, nothing. Many believe he reached a forbidden, unmapped section beyond a locked gate, a zone so tight and perilous that even the most skilled divers feared to follow. To this day, his fate remains an enigma, a reminder that caves can hold their secrets with deadly stubbornness. But in terms of sheer scale and depth, few places match Krubera Cave in the country of Georgia, once considered the deepest known cave on Earth at over 2,000 meters. In 1987, an expedition member named Yuri L. vanished after separating briefly from his team to explore a narrow shaft. The passage he entered was later found to be unstable, with recent rockfalls sealing it off. Whether Yuri was trapped by a collapse or lost in the labyrinth beyond is unknown. The shaft has never been fully cleared, and his remains, if they still exist there, are now part of the cave itself. In 2014, tragedy struck in Nutty Putty Cave in Utah, a tight, winding system of limestone passages. Caver John Jones became wedged upside down in an unmapped section so narrow that rescuers could barely reach him. Despite a massive rescue effort, lasting more than 24 hours, Jones could not be freed. The cave was sealed with his body inside, a decision that effectively turned it into his tomb. While Jones's location is known, the event serves as a grim lesson. Sometimes in the underworld, the living must abandon the dead to avoid joining them. The Shiva cave system, in Mexico, presents another terrifying example. Stretching over 150 kilometers, its passages plunge deeper than most skyscrapers are tall. In 1991, a small team attempted to push further into uncharted territory. 2 members failed to return to base camp, and worsening floods forced the rest of the team to retreat. Repeated attempts to locate them failed, and their remains have never been found. Some theorized they were swept away into underwater siphons that connect to still unknown chambers far below the mapped sections. Cave diving in particular has an unusually high rate of disappearances compared to other extreme sports. The reasons are clear. Visibility can drop to 0 in seconds, silt clouds up at the slightest disturbance, and the narrowest passageways can shred equipment or trap a diver midway. In the Yucatan Peninsula's cenote cave systems, numerous divers have vanished while chasing the lure of unexplored tunnels. These underwater mazes are so complex that even modern mapping technologies can fail to prevent fatal disorientation. But not all vanishings happen to thrill seekers or professionals. In 1972, a group of teenagers exploring the Blue John Cavern in England's Peak District were caught in a sudden flash flood. 3 managed to escape, but 2 were swept into the deeper sections and never recovered. Searchers concluded that the bodies had likely been carried into inaccessible underwater channels, a sobering reality that even relatively safe show caves can turn deadly without warning. The deeper one goes, the more a cave resists being conquered. Beyond a certain point, rescue becomes not just difficult but virtually impossible. Temperatures, water, rockfall hazards, and the sheer remoteness of deep sections mean that any mishap, an injury, equipment failure, or wrong turn can quickly become fatal. And unlike mountains, where a stranded climber may be spotted from the air, caves give no such mercy. A missing caver may be only meters away from safety, yet utterly beyond reach. There's also the unsettling possibility that some disappearances are intentional. Caves have been used as hiding places for fugitives, smugglers, and those seeking to vanish from the world entirely. In 2002, a man wanted for multiple charges in Eastern Europe was tracked to a cave complex. When authorities entered, they found signs of recent habitation, but no man. Whether he perished deeper within or escaped through a yet unknown exit remains uncertain. Legends and folklore add another dimension to these stories. Many cultures have long regarded caves as gateways to the underworld, homes of spirits, or places where reality itself bends. While such beliefs may seem superstitious, for those who have seen the way caves can swallow a person without trace, the metaphors feel uncomfortably literal. The psychology of cave exploration also plays a role. In the deep, the human mind is deprived of natural light and landmarks. Time perception warps, distances feel longer or shorter than they are. Panic can set in, leading to poor decisions and fatal mistakes. A lost or panicked caver may stray into a side passage that quickly narrows, trapping them in a place where no one will think to look. And yet, despite the risks, the lure of the unknown persists. Every year, expeditions venture into unmapped systems, driven by the promise of discovery and the challenge of pushing the limits of human exploration. For them, the danger is part of the draw, an understanding that in caves, survival depends on preparation, skill, and the favor of forces beyond their control. Caves are time capsules, as well as graveyards. In some cases, disappearances may not be permanent. Water levels shift, rock falls clear, and hidden chambers can eventually be revealed. There are recorded cases where remains or equipment have surfaced decades after they were lost, mute testimony to the fact that the cave has given up its dead. But such revelations are rare, and they do little to comfort those still waiting for answers. In the end, Disappearances in the world's deepest caves remind us of a sobering truth: the Earth is not fully known, and some parts of it resist being known. Beneath our feet lies a world of darkness, beauty and danger, a world where a single wrong move can turn exploration into entombment, and where the missing remain part of the stone itself. High above the earth, flight is supposed to symbolize freedom, progress, and mastery over nature. Yet history has shown that the skies can be just as unforgiving as the deepest ocean or the darkest cave. When an aircraft vanishes without a trace, it challenges everything we believe about technology, tracking, and the limits of human knowledge. The vastness of the world's skies and the remote, often inaccessible regions they cover means that some disappearances are never solved. In such cases, the aircraft seem to dissolve into the air itself, leaving behind nothing but questions. One of the most famous and enduring mysteries is the 1937 disappearance of Amelia Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan. Attempting to circumnavigate the globe, their Lockheed Electra vanished over the Pacific Ocean en route to Howland Island. Despite one of the largest and most expensive search efforts of its time, no confirmed wreckage was ever found. Theories range from a crash at sea to landing on an uninhabited island, where they may have died as castaways. Each theory is supported by fragments of evidence but contradicted by others, keeping the mystery alive for nearly a century. Fast forward to 2014, when Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 stunned the modern world by vanishing during a routine journey from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. The Boeing 777 was equipped with advanced communication and tracking systems, yet contact was lost abruptly. Investigators determined the plane veered sharply off course and flew for hours before disappearing over the southern Indian Ocean. Extensive searches, covering tens of thousands of square kilometers, recovered only a few confirmed pieces of debris on remote shorelines. The aircraft's main wreckage, along with the remains of 239 people on board, has never been found. MH370's disappearance is a chilling reminder that even in an era of satellites and radar, the Earth can still hide its secrets. The Bermuda Triangle, a loosely defined area between Florida, Bermuda and Puerto Rico, has become infamous for mysterious vanishings. While skeptics point to storms, mechanical failure, and navigational errors as the main culprits, others see the sheer number of cases as suspicious. In 1945, Flight 19, a squadron of 5 U.S. Navy Avenger torpedo bombers, disappeared during a training mission. Their compasses reportedly malfunctioned, and after hours of confusion, radio contact was lost. A rescue plane sent to find them also vanished, with no wreckage from either group ever confirmed. Official reports cite navigational errors and bad weather, but the complete absence of physical evidence keeps the legend alive. Not all aerial vanishings happen over the ocean. In 1955, Pan American Flight 914 supposedly took off from New York bound for Miami, but the story, largely unverified and possibly urban legend, claims the plane disappeared for decades only to reappear and land in Caracas, Venezuela, in 1985. The passengers reportedly thought only hours had passed. While most historians dismiss this as fictional, the tale continues to circulate in conspiracy circles, showing how the mystery of missing planes fuels the imagination. Then there's the unsettling case of Flying Tiger Line Flight 739 in 1962, a U.S. military transport charter carrying over 90 passengers and crew. The aircraft vanished without a distress call while flying over the western Pacific. Multiple ships and planes scoured the area for weeks, but no wreckage or oil slick was ever discovered. Witnesses on a nearby tanker reported seeing a mid-air explosion, but this was never confirmed by physical evidence. The loss remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of military aviation. Remote mountain ranges are also graveyards for missing aircraft. In 1947, a British South American Airways flight named Stardust disappeared while crossing the Andes, For decades, it was assumed the plane had been lost somewhere in the mountains, inaccessible to search teams. Then in 1998, a retreating glacier revealed fragments of the aircraft and frozen remains. Investigators concluded the pilots had been flying blind in a snowstorm and crashed into a mountain face. In this case, nature didn't hide the truth forever, it simply took half a century to reveal it. Weather is often a decisive factor in aerial disappearances. In 1957, Pan Am Flight 7 vanished over the Pacific, while en route to Hawaii. Debris and a few bodies were eventually found, but no definitive cause was established. Toxicology reports suggested possible foul play, but nothing could be proven. Even with partial recovery, the absence of answers leaves the event categorized as an unsolved disappearance. Sometimes aircraft vanish in war zones, where the fog of battle obscures events. In 1968, a U.S. Navy P-3 Orion surveillance plane disappeared over the Barents Sea while monitoring Soviet activity. No wreckage was officially confirmed, leading to speculation of a mid-air collision, missile strike, or capture. Cold War secrecy only deepened the mystery, with many records still classified decades later. The disappearance of aircraft is made all the more chilling by our assumption that the sky is open, trackable, and transparent. Modern radar, GPS, and communication systems create an illusion of complete control, but the reality is more fragile. Equipment can fail, storms can disrupt signals, and vast stretches of ocean or wilderness offer no witnesses and no landmarks. Once an aircraft is downed in such an environment, locating it becomes a race against time and against the planet's ability to erase evidence. For families of the missing, these vanishings are uniquely cruel. Unlike shipwrecks or cave disasters, which often yield at least some remains or artifacts, aerial disappearances can leave absolutely nothing behind. Loved ones are forced to live with a void, no confirmation of death, no site to visit, no closure. Many become investigators themselves, chasing leads and rumors long after official searches have ended. Psychologically, there's something especially haunting about an object as large and complex as a commercial airliner simply ceasing to exist. We expect the ocean to swallow small boats or mountains to hide lone hikers, but a modern aircraft with hundreds of tons of metal, electronics, and human lives feels too significant to simply vanish. And yet history shows it can happen again and again. Technology continues to evolve in response to these mysteries. Newer aircraft are equipped with systems that transmit location data in real time, even if the main power fails. Satellite-based tracking and underwater locator beacons with longer lifespans aim to reduce the odds of a plane vanishing completely. But technology can only do so much, especially when disaster strikes in the most remote, inhospitable places on Earth. The sky may seem limitless and free, but it is as much a wilderness as the deep ocean or the uncharted cave. It can be hostile, unpredictable, and merciless. When an aircraft disappears, it is as if a door has opened in that wilderness, swallowing the craft and closing again without a trace. The search for answers continues long after the last radar blip fades, driven by the same question that has haunted aviators, investigators, and families for decades: where did they go? In the end, the silent skies remind us that mastery of flight is never absolute. We are guests in the air, and sometimes, the air decides not to return us. The ocean's surface may glitter in the sun, but beneath lies a realm of crushing darkness, silence, and unimaginable pressure. Submarines, those silent predators of the deep, navigate this alien world unseen, their missions often shrouded in secrecy. But when a submarine vanishes, it is swallowed into one of the most hostile environments on Earth, a place that guards its secrets well. Recovering such a vessel is often beyond human capability, and the disappearances leave a haunting vacuum in history, where only whispers and speculation remain. One of the earliest and most famous submarine mysteries is that of the USS Scorpion, SSN 589, a U.S. nuclear-powered attack submarine that disappeared in May 1968, with 99 crew members aboard. On a routine return to its home port in Norfolk, Virginia, the Scorpion was last heard from near the Azores. Months later, search teams located her wreckage over 10,000 feet below the surface of the Atlantic. The cause of the disaster remains debated. Some suspect an internal torpedo explosion, others point to mechanical failure, and a few even suggest Cold War sabotage. Official reports remain inconclusive, fueling decades of speculation. That same year saw another chilling loss, the Soviet submarine K-129, disappearing in the Pacific Ocean, with its crew of 98. The vessel was later discovered thousands of feet underwater. In a bizarre turn of events, the United States, through a covert CIA operation known as Project Azorian, attempted to recover parts of the submarine in 1974 using the specially built ship Glomar Explorer. Only a section was retrieved, and details remain classified to this day, sparking theories of espionage, nuclear mishaps, and political cover-ups. Submarines vanish not only in wartime or during espionage, but also in peacetime training missions. The INES Dakar, an Israeli submarine, disappeared in 1968, making that year the most notorious for submarine losses in history. For over 3 decades, her fate was a mystery, until wreckage was found in 1999, lying deep in the Mediterranean. The cause was determined to be a catastrophic mechanical failure, yet the decades of uncertainty had already entrenched her loss into maritime legend. One of the most tragic disappearances in the 21st century was the ARA San Juan of the Argentine Navy. In November 2017, the San Juan went missing in the South Atlantic with 44 crew members aboard. An international search involving multiple nations eventually located the submarine a year later, resting at a depth of about 900 meters. Investigations suggested an onboard explosion caused by a battery failure. The images of the wreck, twisted and broken in the black depths, serve as a stark reminder of the unforgiving nature of submarine service. Submarine disappearances during wartime carry an additional layer of mystery, as they are often veiled by classified operations and conflicting reports. During World War II, dozens of submarines from various nations vanished without a trace. The USS Grunion, SS-216 for example, disappeared in 1942 near the Aleutian Islands. It wasn't until 2006 that her wreck was discovered by the sons of the vessel's captain, lying under hundreds of meters of water. The cause appeared to be damage from a Japanese anti-submarine attack, but the decades-long absence had already woven the Grunion into the tapestry of naval lore. The ocean's crushing pressure and total darkness make the recovery of lost submarines nearly impossible. At depths exceeding 3,000 meters, the hulls of these vessels can implode with catastrophic violence, scattering debris and sealing the fate of their crews in a matter of milliseconds. The sea floor, littered with the remains of countless vessels, becomes their final unreachable grave. Some submarine vanishings are tangled in conspiracy theories. The French submarine Minerve, lost in 1968 with 52 sailors aboard, remained missing for over 50 years. Rumors swirled of secret missions, nuclear accidents, and espionage gone wrong. In 2019, advances in undersea search technology finally located her wreckage off the southern coast of France. The cause, likely a sudden and violent flooding, was determined only after decades of uncertainty. The stories of lost submarines also carry an eerie sense of duality. These are machines designed to be invisible, to operate unseen, and yet when they vanish completely, that same invisibility turns against them. The very environment they are built to conquer becomes the one that consumes them. Unlike ships lost at sea, submarines do not drift, they sink to the ocean floor, their steel hulls becoming sealed tombs. For the families of those lost, the agony is unique. Without bodies to bury or wreckage to see, the grieving process is suspended. The loved ones of the crew often live in limbo, wondering if their relatives might have survived in some miraculous circumstance, trapped in an air pocket, or escaped and been captured. These faint hopes are almost always extinguished, but the lack of concrete answers makes closure elusive. The deep-sea searches for these lost vessels are among the most challenging undertakings in maritime history. Specialized ships equipped with sonar and remotely operated vehicles scour vast areas of the ocean, often at great expense and with uncertain results. The discovery of a wreck can take years, and sometimes it never comes. When it does, the find is both a triumph of technology and a somber reminder of human fragility against the might of the sea. Beyond the personal tragedies, there are strategic and environmental concerns. Many lost submarines carry nuclear reactors or torpedoes armed with warheads, lying in fragile states at the bottom of the ocean. The long-term environmental impact of these sunken nuclear materials remains a troubling question for scientists and governments alike. Some fear that corrosion over decades could lead to radioactive leakage, affecting marine ecosystems in ways we cannot yet predict. Culturally, the mystery of vanished submarines holds a special place in storytelling. Films, novels, and documentaries have long been fascinated by these ghosts of the deep, blending fact and fiction to explore themes of isolation, secrecy, and sacrifice. The silence of the ocean, the unknown fate of the crew, and the eerie image of a vessel resting undisturbed for decades feed into humanity's primal fear of being lost in an environment utterly hostile to life. Technological advancements in undersea exploration, like deep-diving drones, high-resolution sonar mapping, and AI-assisted search patterns, are improving our ability to locate these wrecks. Yet even with modern tools, the search for a lost submarine remains one of the most daunting missions imaginable. Every recovery is a rare and costly victory against an opponent as vast and relentless as the ocean itself. In the end, submarines that vanish are reminders of a truth often forgotten in the age of technological pride: the sea is still the greatest frontier, and it does not easily give up what it takes. Beneath the waves, far from the eyes of the world, these vessels lie in eternal darkness, their missions unfinished, their stories incomplete. They are monuments to courage and tragedy, sealed away in a realm where only whispers remain.